We've covered the number one picks of the 2000s. We've done the 2010s as well. So I figured, why don't we just make a video about all the best number one picks of all time? And it only makes sense to start in chronological order for a video like this. We're starting off with the best player drafted in the 1950s, Elgen Baylor. Rookie of the Year winner, 11-time All-Star, Hall of Famer. Baylor was a man on a mission during his playing days. I mean, he finished top 5 in MVP voting for his first 5 years in the league, averaging 32 points per game during that time, along with 16.7 rebounds. Back in his era, most players couldn't attack the basket even close to how he could with his vertical and his athleticism, so it gave him a huge advantage. Baylor stood at 6 foot 5 inches, 225 pounds, and one post I saw stated that he was a shorter, earlier version of LeBron James in their eyes. Unfortunately, during his time in the league, Baylor wasn't able to bring home an NBA championship with the Lakers, where he played all 14 years of his career. He does, however, hold the record for most rebounds in Lakers history and was also third in points per game overall up until he was recently passed by Luka and Embiid. But who knows if they're going to be able to keep up that level of scoring for the rest of their careers. That's going to be pretty tough. Moving on to the 1960s now, there was no way that Oscar Robertson was not making this list. The original Mr. Triple-Double nearly averaged a triple-double for his entire career, for God's sakes. Falling just a bit short in the assist and rebounds columns, but not by very much. And considering Oscar was a point guard, these were incredible stats. He was a dominant playmaker, but he was not afraid to get in the mix down low, along with having a great high post-up game. Robertson was a guy you definitely wanted on your team and did not want to go against. He carried the Cincinnati Royals for about every one of his 10 seasons that he spent there, winning MVP in the 1963-64 season. And after his run in Cincy ended, he ended up with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on the Bucks to win his lone NBA title in the 1970-71 season. Amazing career overall for Robertson, Rookie of the Year winner, 12-time All-Star, 6-time assist champ, and ended up becoming a Hall of Famer. Just 1 year later, Walt Bellamy was selected by the Chicago Packers and instantly started dominating by winning the Rookie of the Year award, averaging 31.6 points per game and 19 rebounds. Bellamy had a lengthy 14-year career in the NBA, playing for multiple different teams, including the Packers, Zephyrs, and Bullets, which we're going to group all into the same category for franchise purposes: Knicks, Pistons, Hawks, and the Jazz. Honestly, he was the perfect build for that era of basketball that was heavily skewed towards big paint protectors. He didn't have the most weight on him, but he did have great body control down low, which was why he was so dang effective. I can't sit here and lie to you guys, though. Putting him on here was ever so slightly in question. I mean, he was great for his first, let's say, 6 years in the league, making all 4 of his All-Star appearances during that time. Then after, wasn't quite as effective, but he's a Hall of Famer, so come on, he's got to be on this list, right? On to another Hall of Famer that was much less of a question mark to put on this list. It was Elvin Hayes, drafted first overall in 1968 by the San Diego Rockets. Hayes was another player that fit the mold of a big man that anybody would have loved to have on their team during his time in the league. This is our first power forward today, and boy, he was one of the best to ever play the game. Hayes was known as having a lethal turnaround jumper and was a nightmare to go up against when he was covering you on defense. With exactly 50,000 total minutes played during his career, along with 12 All-Star appearances, being a 2-time rebounding champ, winning a title in the 1977-78 season with the Washington Bullets, and eventually making the Hall of Fame at the very end like we mentioned earlier, Hayes was no doubt worthy of being one of the best number one picks in NBA history. Next up in 1969, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has to be the best player we've mentioned up to this point in the video. Drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks, started off his career extremely hot, winning the Rookie of the Year award, averaging 28.8 points per game and 14.5 rebounds per game. But unlike our previously mentioned picks, Kareem kept up this level of play for about 17 to 18 years, which showed unbelievable durability. He's most famous for the skyhook, which was virtually unguardable unless you had a freakish wingspan and were positioned perfectly. While most other centers around the time were known for using just their brute force and their size to their advantage, Kareem brought much more than that to the table, used his versatility and agility to win many more matchups. Not to mention, nobody wanted to enter the paint with him standing there. This guy had a very lengthy list of achievements that he rightfully earned throughout his 20-year NBA career, including Rookie of the Year winner, 19-time All-Star, 1-time rebounding champion, 6-time NBA champion with the Bucks and the Lakers, 11-time All-Defensive Team, 6-time MVP winner, 2-time scoring champion, 4-time block champion, 15-time All-NBA, 2-time Finals MVP, and many, many more. He also held the title of all-time scoring leader up until recently when LeBron broke it in February of 2023. Moving to the next year in 1970, we have Bob Lanier, who was taken number 1 overall by the Detroit Pistons. Lanier was known for his deadly hook shot, strong outside shot, and great rebounding skills. The fact that he was able to keep up with elite centers around the time, such as Wilt Chamberlain and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, speaks volumes about what type of player he actually was. Despite competing hard with the best of the best, Lanier was never able to win himself a championship during his 14-year career in both Detroit with the Pistons and Milwaukee with the Bucks. But he was able to make 8 All-Star appearances along with being inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1992. Bob also finished as the all-time leader in scoring average for the Pistons franchise at 22.7 points per game. Another fun fact that I wanted to mention right here is that he wore a size 22 sneaker, which many people could probably fit both of their feet into. Continuing the trend of centers dominating these number 1 picks, in 1974, Bill Walton was taken by the Trailblazers. Walton struggled to stay healthy due to a bunch of foot injuries throughout his career, but before all that started, he led the Blazers to their first championship in franchise history during the 1976-77 season, along with being named the Finals MVP in that series against the 76ers and leading the entire league in rebounds and blocks per game. Pretty tough to follow up an NBA championship, but Walton did his best the next season by winning his lone MVP award after averaging 18.9 points per game, 13.2 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2.5 blocks to top it all off. Once Walton's time with the Blazers was up, he went to the Clippers and then to the Celtics, where he would win his second and final NBA title. Bill has many achievements under his belt, such as being a 2-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA selection, being named the 6th Man of the Year in his second title season, was selected to the defensive team 2 times, and is in the Hall of Fame as of 1993. Walton also commentates mostly for college basketball, which is interesting to say the least. I'm not 100% sure if he is still commentating in 2024. Half the time you can't even really tell what he's saying. Quack, quack. But it certainly leads to a good laugh if you happen to catch a game with him in the booth. All right, finally, in 1975, we have our first elite shooting guard, David Thompson, selected by the Atlanta Hawks. But this situation was a bit more confusing. Thompson was also taken by the Virginia Squires in the ABA draft at number 1. Then once the ABA and NBA merged in 1976, he started playing for the Denver Nuggets, while the Hawks technically still had his draft rights. That lone season, he did play in the ABA though. Thompson won the Rookie of the Year award, along with tying for second in MVP voting, just behind Dr. J, Julius Erving. After swapping over to the NBA, he would continue to dominate with his insane vertical leap of 44 inches and soft touch from mid-range. Some of you might know that Thompson is one of the few NBA players ever to score over 70 points in a single game. He achieved that feat on April 9th, 1978 in a game against the Detroit Pistons, where he finished with 73 points. Sad part about that game is they still lost by just 2 points. Thompson also earned a lot of respect over the years, making 5 All-Star appearances, 2 All-NBA appearances, as well as making the Hall of Fame in 1996. Unfortunately, he only played 9 total seasons in the league and had to retire early due to off-court issues such as drug rehab and numerous injuries. Moving on to 1979, the iconic Earvin Magic Johnson was taken by the Lakers first overall. He is still regarded as the best point guard of all time for some NBA fans, and it's pretty easy to see why. Magic was like a demigod that you would create in 2K who could play every single position on the floor, not just well, but excellent. He stood at 6 foot 9 inches and 215 pounds. For a point guard, that's insane. In Game 6 of the 1980 NBA Finals, Johnson stepped in to play center for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was injured, and played the best game of his entire career up to that point, scoring 42 points, 15 rebounds, and 7 assists against the 76ers. That Sixers team were no slouches either. They were led by Dr. J, along with having Daryl Dawkins in the paint, making what Magic did even more impressive. All his efforts throughout that series earned himself the Finals MVP award, and this would be far from his last achievement in the NBA. By the time his career was over, Johnson earned himself 12 All-Star appearances, 10 All-NBA selections, 3 Finals MVPs, became a 4-time assist champion, 2-time steal champ, 5 NBA championships, all with the Lakers, and of course, he ended up making the Hall of Fame. Now, towards the tail end of his NBA career, Johnson was diagnosed with HIV, which halted his career after his first 12 seasons. He did make a brief return, but ultimately had to step away from basketball at the age of 36. Don't worry though, he's still alive and well to this day thanks to modern medicine, and I am sure that all of that treatment was not cheap. So it's a good thing Magic is one of 4 billionaire athletes according to Forbes, so that makes things a little bit easier for him, I'm sure. Let's keep it on the Lakers here in 1982 with James Worthy. I mean, with his iconic goggles, anybody who knows basketball is going to recognize this guy instantly. Right out of the gates, he was on a championship contending roster, which had legends that we previously had mentioned, such as Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The first 2 seasons of Worthy's career ended in heartbreak, though, as they made it to the finals both times, but came up just a bit short, especially in the 1983-84 season where they lost to the Celtics in Game 7. The Lakers did get their revenge next season though, and Worthy took a step up in terms of his play from the first 2 years. After that, Worthy was a reliable 20-ish points per game option for LA and about 5 rebounds. You couldn't really ask for much more from a team's third option on the Showtime Lakers. He was a very unselfish player who was great at attacking the rim, ran the court extremely well, created shots for his teammates, and did what he needed to do on the defensive end of the basketball. Skipping ahead just 1 year later in the draft to 1983, we had Ralph Samson taken by the Houston Rockets at number 1. Samson stood at 7 foot 4 inches tall and 228 pounds, which is why his nickname was Stick during his playing days. His career started off extremely well with him winning Rookie of the Year and making the All-Star game 4 straight seasons. During that period of time, Samson averaged just under 20 points per game and 10.5 rebounds. Unfortunately, after this stretch of his career, his body would begin to give way and he suffered constant injuries. I have heard all the comparisons under the sun of what he could have been, but most commonly I see a mix between Dirk Nowitzki and Kevin Garnett if he could have unlocked his full potential. It's not really surprising that such a tall player experienced so many injuries in the league. It's just basically a given that over time of playing basketball at the highest level is going to result in a ton of injuries, and you're going to see another example of that later in this video. Someone well over 7 feet tall getting hurt a lot. Although Samson only lasted 9 years in the league, he still managed to make his way into the Hall of Fame and earned himself 1 All-NBA selection, along with those 4 All-Star appearances that we mentioned earlier. Now it's time for another player on the Rockets, and not only that, but another center they selected in a row. It's Hakeem Olajuwon in 1984, one of the best centers to ever play the game of basketball. Hakeem was a jack of all trades. He could score at will, he was a great rebounder, had good court vision, and of course was one of the best shot blockers that the game had ever seen. He's also one of 4 players in NBA history to record a quadruple double, which is 4 double-digit stat categories out of points, assists, rebounds, steals, and blocks. The date Hakeem achieved this feat was on March 29th, 1990 in a game against the Milwaukee Bucks. He finished that game with 18 points, 10 assists, 16 rebounds, and 11 blocks. Olajuwon is also known for his signature move, the Dream Shake, and I don't know why I just thought of this. Well, I do, but does anybody remember that Harlem Shake dance that was popular for like 1 year? All right, anyways. The Dream Shake was his set of post moves that he would use to confuse almost every defender that took on the challenge of guarding him, and it worked very well. Hakeem had the bad luck of going up against Michael Jordan though for Rookie of the Year in his first season, so he ended up coming in second place, but I would say his career turned out pretty well looking back on things. He ended up with 12 All-Star appearances, 12 All-NBA selections, was a 3-time block champ, 2-time rebounding champ, 2-time NBA champion, 2-time Finals MVP, 9-time All-Defensive selection, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year award winner, 1-time MVP winner in the 1993-94 season, and of course he made the Hall of Fame in 2008. The NBA also renamed the Defensive Player of the Year award to the Akeem Olajuwon Trophy, which is a huge honor and shows just how dominant he was on that side of the basketball. Moving on to 1985, the Knicks selected Patrick Ewing at number 1, who would have the unfortunate task of being matched up with Olajuwon in an NBA Finals series down the road. But we're going to leave that off and not talk about that too much to save some Knicks fans here. So heading into the draft, Ewing was viewed as a hard worker on the defensive end, but ended up turning into a great offensive presence on the Knicks as well for 15 seasons. In fact, he actually carried this entire franchise on his back during his time with New York. But he was never able to bring home a title during his time with the team. Bill Simmons, who is an ESPN columnist, popularized something known as the Ewing theory, which is described as a star athlete who has a ton of media attention and fan interest, but can never lead his team to any meaningful success, which is pretty brutal from Bill Simmons here, and that theory might have spun Ewing's career in more of a negative manner than it should have. At the end of the day, Patrick Ewing might not have won a championship, but he did retire with a Rookie of the Year trophy under his belt, 11 All-Star appearances, 7 All-NBA selections, 3 All-Defensive selections, and was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2008. If the Knicks could have had some more good pieces around Ewing during his time in the league, I do think they could have brought home a championship, but I guess we're never going to truly know. Now, I really debated throwing Brad Daugherty on this list from 1986, but he just didn't end up playing quite long enough because of back problems, so I decided to leave him off. He did make 5 All-Star appearances out of his 8 seasons, though, and was a great player for the Cavs in the early 90s. All right, rounding off the 80s today, you know David Robinson was not going to get left off this list, taken first overall in 1987 by the Spurs. Robinson didn't end up actually playing in the NBA, though, until the 1989-90 season due to him being in the Navy when he was first selected. Once he did start playing, Robinson made a huge impact, winning the Rookie of the Year award and averaging 24.3 points along with 12 rebounds per game. The impressive part about the Admiral is that he kept up a high level of play for about 13 seasons straight with the Spurs. Robinson had a deadly mid-range jump shot along with playing good defense, good handles for a big man, and great passing vision. Robinson is yet another player on our list today that recorded a quadruple-double of his own, making him the 4th player in history at the time to achieve that feat, and still the final member of that list to this day. He recorded the quad-double on February 17, 1994 against the Pistons, scoring 34 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, and 10 blocks. Robinson is also one of the few players to score over 70 points in a single game, so he's a part of 2 very, very rare lists of players. And to make things even better, scoring 71 in that game also won him the scoring title that season, just narrowly beating out Shaquille O'Neal. Other than that scoring title, Robinson racked up 10 All-Star appearances, 10 All-NBA selections, 2 NBA championships, 8 All-Defensive selections, won the MVP award in the 1994-95 season, was a 1-time block and rebounding champion, 1-time Defensive Player of the Year, and was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2009. Hold on just a minute though. I know we are still quite a ways away from the NBA playoffs, but in the second half of this season, teams are going to have to play their best basketball. What better way to enjoy some of the best players in the league than by entering into some underdog pick'ems and win some money? Let's take a second here to talk about the sponsor of today's video, Underdog Fantasy. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're on your mobile phone app or desktop, luckily Underdog works on both. All you have to do is take a look at your favorite players' projections and decide if you think they're going to go higher or lower than that certain number. There's also a chance that you will 20 times your money in one single night if all your picks are correct. And I'll tell you something even better. If you use code SWEAT when you sign up, Underdog's going to match your first deposit up to $100, which gives you that many more chances of winning. Underdog Fantasy is available in the majority of US states. Just check out this map to make sure that you qualify. Enjoy the second half of this NBA season, and don't forget to use code SWEAT when signing up for those sweet, sweet rewards. Thank you to Underdog for sponsoring this video. Speaking of Shaq, by the way, he is our next man up at pick number 1 in 1992 by the Orlando Magic. To be straight up with you guys, the power of Shaquille O'Neal was unlike anything anybody had ever seen before. I mean, he could just bully people in the paint. They didn't have the slightest chance of stopping him. The fact that he could combine his brute strength with great post footwork and then either pass out of the post if another look on the outside was open, go up with the shot right away, or drop step past his defender was honestly a cheat code. Shaq has had so many memorable NBA moments, from when he broke multiple hoops from dunking so hard, or when he postered the hell out of Chris Dudley, pushed him to the ground, and then Dudley threw the ball at him. Watching Shaq play was always a fun experience. Shaq started off his career fast, becoming one of the best centers that the league had to offer and winning the Rookie of the Year award. During his time in Orlando, he came very close to winning a title but couldn't get the job done until after joining Kobe on the Lakers during the 1996 season. Don't get it twisted though, Shaq was still the best player on the Lakers for multiple seasons before Kobe really started getting going. Their first title came in the 1999 to 2000 season, and they would win a total of 3 straight during that period, with Shaq taking home the Finals MVP award all 3 times. After his time in LA was done, Shaq got one more title with Dwayne Wade in the Heat. Throughout his entire career, Shaq earned 15 All-Star selections, 14 All-NBA selections, 3 All-Defensive selections, led the league in scoring twice, won the MVP award in the 1999 to 2000 season, and was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2016. Just 1 year later, I couldn't leave Chris Webber off this list, taken by the Magic at number 1 in 1993. So the Magic had back-to-back number 1 picks in 92 and 93, but they traded Webber to the Warriors for Penny Hardaway and 3 future first-round draft picks. They probably figured, well, we already have Shaquille O'Neal, we might as well pair him with a great point guard and be set up nicely for the future at the same time. Webber was the ideal big man during his era of basketball, excelling at rebounding, had a great mid-range game along with having solid passing vision. And after winning the Rookie of the Year award in Golden State, the Warriors had the same idea as the Magic did. They sent Webber away to the Washington Bullets for 3 draft picks and Tom Gugliotta. He was still a great player in Washington, don't get me wrong, even making an All-Star appearance during his time with the team, but Webber is really known for exploding with the Sacramento Kings starting in the 1998 to 99 season. His first season with the Kings, he led the league in rebounds per game at 13 and would make 4 straight All-Star games starting after his first season. Their best season was in 2001 to 2002, where they made it all the way to the Western Conference Finals before falling to the Lakers in 7 games. That team was so fun to watch back in the day, with Mike Bibby, Stojakovic, and Webber. By the end of Webber's career, he had racked up 5 total All-Star appearances, 5 All-NBA selections, Rookie of the Year, and was a 1-time rebounding champ, as we mentioned earlier, along with making it to the Hall of Fame in 2021.
With the first pick, Allen Iverson from Georgetown University.
Allen Iverson taken number 1 overall by the 76ers in 1996. This is one of the best point guards in terms of scoring that the game has ever seen. He did bounce between point guard and shooting guard, but Iverson was known for his lightning quick crossover moves, ball handling skills that very few players possessed, as well as a first step that would leave players wondering how he even got by them so quickly. He started off his career on a great note by winning the Rookie of the Year award over Stephon Marbury after averaging 23.5 points and 7.5 assists per game. During his time in Philly, Iverson carried the hell out of this team each and every season, even leading them to a finals appearance in the 2000 to 2001 season against the Lakers and winning the MVP award for all his efforts. Game 1 of that series, Iverson put on a hell of a show, scoring 48 points and leading the Sixers to an upset victory over a much more talented Lakers roster. Another key moment from that game is when Iverson hit a step-back jumper and then proceeded to step over Tyronn Lue, which has become an iconic image to this day. Iverson was just a complete workhorse on the Sixers though, leading the league in minutes played in 5 out of his first 10.5 seasons there, along with leading the league in steals 3 times and points 4 times. Pretty crazy to see that Iverson only won that 1 MVP award, even though he had multiple seasons scoring over 30 points per game. After his time in Philly came to an end, Iverson made his way to Denver and a few other teams, but nothing compared to AI on the Sixers. At the end of his career, Iverson had amassed 11 All-Star appearances, 7 All-NBA selections, and was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2016, along with all the other achievements that we previously mentioned. Next up is one of the best power forwards of all time, but somehow I still feel like he is underrated for some reason. Maybe it's because he just put his head down and did his job so well every single game, but stayed out of the spotlight for the most part. I'm talking about Tim Duncan, taken first overall by the Spurs in 1997. Duncan was just a player who did all the fundamental things well. He had an elite post game, his passing vision was awesome, his mid-range was automatic, and he was great at blocking shots and getting rebounds. Duncan had the honor of being coached by none other than Greg Popovich throughout his entire career, which certainly played a huge part in helping him reach his full potential. Tim's success started very early on when he won the Rookie of the Year award and a title with David Robinson in the 1998-99 season, and then once the Spurs added Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and Duncan, it was game over when they had those three on the team. They won it again in the 2002-2003 season, the 04-05 season, 06-07, took a little break until they acquired Kawhi Leonard and won another in the 2013-14 season over the Miami Heat in the NBA Finals. As I mentioned earlier, Duncan was never going to be the guy to go and try to be on the front page of every media article. He showed up every day, put his head down, and was exactly the type of leader that you want on your team. I mean, it's okay to have a little fun and let loose every once in a while, but some players in today's game just aren't fully focused on winning. Some guys are over here dancing for TikTok in the locker room rather than practicing off camera and focusing on improving their game, but that's just my opinion on that matter. By the end of Duncan's career, he had 15 All-Star appearances, 15 All-NBA selections, was a 3-time Finals MVP, 2-time MVP, 5-time NBA champion, 15-time All-Defensive Team selections for him, which is the most in NBA history, by the way, and made the Hall of Fame in 2020. Let's head on to the 2000s now, with the Houston Rockets selecting Yao Ming at number 1 in 2002. Yao Ming, standing in at 7 feet 6 inches tall and 310 pounds, was a monster on the court, towering over almost every other player that he went up against. He also, of course, caused a ton of Chinese fans to start watching the NBA because they wanted to see just how well he played every night as he represented their country. In his first year in the NBA, Yao finished just behind Amari Stoudemire for Rookie of the Year winner, but still ended up making the All-Star game, which was a great sign for the future. He continued that trend of making the All-Star game for every single season that he was in the league, other than in 2009 when he was injured, of course, and missed that entire year. For his first 3 years in the league, Yao was a beast, but eventually injuries would start to get the better of him, and he slowed down drastically. Like we mentioned earlier on in this video with Ralph Samson, it's very hard for these super tall NBA players to stay healthy for long periods of time, especially when you're going up against the best of the best in the entire world every single night. Speaking of the best, Yao Ming versus Shaquille O'Neal was one of the best matchups to watch during his playing days. Shaq isn't one to compliment too many NBA centers around the league, but he for sure respected how Yao played the game and certainly made his life hard in the paint during their matchups. Overall, Yao played 8 seasons in the league, making 8 All-Star appearances, 5 All-NBA appearances, and made the Hall of Fame in 2016. Now, I'm sure you guys know who was up next in 2003, none other than LeBron James, taken first by the Cavaliers. This one shouldn't need too much explanation of why he is on this list. If you're not sure, then you might be living under a rock by this point. LeBron is right up there with Michael Jordan in the GOAT conversation. Some of you might not want to hear those words out of my mouth, but it's absolutely true no matter what side you're taking in that debate. When James started off his career in Cleveland, you immediately could tell that he was going to be something special down the line. He won the Rookie of the Year award to kickstart his career, and since that season, he has made the All-Star game 20 straight years. His early days with the Cavs could be described pretty simply. I mean, he carried that team on his back, but couldn't quite win a championship with the roster pieces surrounding him at the time. There was one game against the Pistons in the Eastern Conference Finals where he scored 25 straight points, ultimately leading to a win in that game. That right there pretty much sums it up. That's what he had to do to win some of those games. After his first 7 years in Cleveland were over, LeBron was sick of losing, and you could tell. I mean, all he had to show for that time was 2 measly MVP awards in a row and one season where he led the league in scoring. That's it? Come on, LeBron. He didn't care much about those achievements, though. He wanted that ring desperately. So he went to Miami to team up with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. That combination of players right there changed the game forever, creating a super team that nobody wanted to face. After losing the finals to the Mavericks in their first season together, the trio would win back-to-back titles in the 2011-12 and 2012-13 seasons. Then in 2014, LeBron went back to Cleveland and faced the Warriors in 4 straight finals appearances, winning just one of them, but it was in epic fashion, coming back from a 3-1 deficit and becoming the only team in NBA history to do so in a final series. Since then, LeBron has teamed up with Anthony Davis on the Lakers, gaining one more ring together and hopefully getting another before he calls it a career. One YouTube video I saw said that LeBron holds 73 different NBA records currently. I'm sure that it has to be more than that, but none bigger than being the leading point scorer in NBA history ahead of other legends such as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Karl Malone, and Kobe Bryant. Some notable achievements for LeBron up to this point in his career is that he is a 20-time All-Star, has 19 All-NBA selections, 6 All-Defensive selections, 4 Finals MVPs, 4 NBA championships, 4 MVPs, and most importantly, of course, he won the 2023 to 2024 in-season tournament MVP award, baby. Let's go. Lakers took that one home. That's a huge accomplishment, probably bigger than any in his entire career, if I'm being honest with you. That was a joke, by the way. Don't slam me in the comments for that one. Just 1 year later, in 2004, we had Dwight Howard taken by the Orlando Magic. Have you noticed there's been a ton of centers on this list taken by the Magic over the years at number 1? Anyways, Dwight had a long NBA career playing for 18 seasons, but his prime was something that you can't even compare to his later seasons in the league. Orlando Dwight was a freak of nature that would bully you on the boards and also block anything and everything that entered into the paint, even finishing with 3 straight Defensive Player of the Year awards during his time with the Magic. Despite how well his career panned out in Orlando, some people still think he could have been even better if he dedicated more time to his offensive game. He was great in the post when he was close to the basket. If he had a smaller defender on him, it was game over, and he would destroy opposing teams on the offensive glass. But he really didn't have any mid-range game, and his free throw shooting was just atrocious. A lot of points were left on the floor because of those 2 flaws in his game. There was a series in the 2008-2009 playoffs in which he faced off against the stacked Boston Celtics roster, including Rajon Rondo, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen. Howard and the Magic took that series in 7 games, with Dwight pulling down an average of over 17 rebounds per game, and then they took down LeBron and the Cavaliers in 6 games after Dwight averaged 25.8 points and 13 boards per game. They went on to the finals that year and fell to the Lakers, but it was still a hell of a performance. And he did eventually get himself a title all the way in 2020 with none other than LeBron James as a part of that Lakers bubble team. You also can't forget about the legendary Superman dunk contest in 2008 either, where he jumped from just past the free throw line. That was back when the dunk contest was actually fun to watch. I don't know about you guys, but now it's not so fun anymore. That's just my opinion though. But by the end of his NBA journey, Howard had 8 All-Star appearances, 8 All-NBA selections, was a 2-time block champ, 5-time All-Defensive selection, 5-time rebounding champ, and I feel like a lot of people are split down the middle if he deserves to make the Hall of Fame or not, but what do you guys think? Alright, this is about the time of the video where I start getting threats in the comment section and people calling me an absolute moron. I'm skipping over Derrick Rose, Blake Griffin, and John Wall for their overall careers. Let's get that straight right now. I loved watching these guys play, but if I'm making this list of the best overall #1 picks of all time, they just miss out on being on here. They are right on the border, and I'm going to shout out individual sections of their careers though, starting with Derrick Rose on the Bulls, of course, pre-ACL tear. Blake Griffin during the Lob City era in LA with the Clippers, and John Wall up until he was 28 years old on the Wizards. Those players were elite during their prime, and if they could have kept up that level of play for many years later, then we'd be talking about a different story here, but you know, things happen. The next man up I do have on this list though is Kyrie Irving, drafted in 2011 by the Cavaliers. Kyrie has been in a ton of different drama. From not wanting to play with LeBron on the Cavs anymore, sitting out of Nets home games because the governor wouldn't let him play unless he got the COVID vaccine, to his quote-unquote anti-Semitic comments. This dude is not one to stay out of controversy. But when he has been on the court and playing, Kyrie has balled out. Irving is known for his elite ball handling skills and deadly crossover moves. He's honestly the best ball handler that I've ever seen in my life. He started off his career by winning the Rookie of the Year award and took over as the team's leading scorer until LeBron got there in 2014. Even when LeBron got to Cleveland though, Kyrie still stuck with them in terms of scoring. In fact, Kyrie came up huge in the 2016 NBA Finals where they came back from that 3-1 deficit. In Game 7, he hit a clutch three-point shot with under a minute left in the game to give them a 92-89 lead at the time and ultimately sealed the victory and won the finals for them. Like we previously mentioned, after losing to the Warriors in the following season though, Kyrie had enough of playing with LeBron and decided to move on to the Boston Celtics. This was supposed to make the Celtics title contenders at the time, but Irving struggled with injuries and it really didn't end up working out for them. Since then, he has spent time with the Nets and is now on the Mavericks, teamed up with Luka Doncic, one of the best players in the entire league, currently hoping to get back to the finals somehow. He has been having some trouble getting fully healthy recently, and I'm not sure how they're going to get past some of the other powerhouses in the NBA with Kyrie and Luka doing most of the work, if not all the work, but we're going to see what happens. Up to this point in his career, Irving is an 8-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA selection, 1-time NBA champion, and is looking for more accomplishments as we speak. Moving on to another LeBron teammate who is still playing to this day, it's Anthony Davis, taken first overall by the Hornets in 2012. AD is great on the offensive side of the basketball when he really puts all his effort in, but he really stands out on the defensive end, serving as an elite rim protector and rebounder. During his time in New Orleans, he really put the Pelicans on his back, at least until DeMarcus Cousins got there toward the end of the 2016-17 season, even though they did have some role players though that pulled their own weight, such as Ryan Anderson and Drew Holiday. He led the league in blocks 3 different seasons while he was with the Pelicans and finished top 5 in MVP voting twice. But even with him doing all he could individually, they never had enough power to make it deep into the playoffs for a title run. When there seemed to be no postseason success in his future with the Pelicans, Davis was traded to the Lakers, and that instantly changed things around for him, winning the finals during his first season teamed up with LeBron. Since that season, the Lakers have been desperately trying to find that level of success in the postseason, making a good run last year, but falling short against the Nuggets, who had them outmatched in almost every aspect of the game. The 2023-24 season is off to a good start though, with them winning the in-season tournament like we talked about earlier, but having another title would of course be way more impressive. So far into his career, Davis has made 9 All-Star games, 4 All-NBA appearances, 4 All-Defensive appearances, and if he keeps up this level of play, he should be a Hall of Famer one day. Now, for these next couple of number 1 picks, we really don't have enough of a sample size, I would say, to put them on this list, but I think they could definitely make it there in the future. We're starting with 2015, Karl Anthony Towns at number 1 by the Timberwolves. As of right now, Cat has played 8 seasons in the league, all for the Timberwolves, won the Rookie of the Year award, is a 4-time All-Star and 2-time All-NBA selection. If he can get a title with Anthony Edwards on the Timberwolves team right now, then he should for sure end up being one of the best number 1 picks. But right now, I just don't think he quite qualifies. He is, however, averaging 23 points per game over the course of his career, along with 10.9 rebounds per game, so he's definitely on the right track. I think we just need some more time to see what exactly he can do over these next coming years. Now, the same could be said about Zion Williamson, the 2019 first overall pick by the New Orleans Pelicans. He's currently in the middle of his 4th overall season in the league, 2 of which he's played less than 30 total games. So let's just hope he can stay healthy for the rest of 2024, and, you know, the rest of his career would be nice as well. We don't have enough to go off of right now, but he is averaging 24.8 points per game, along with 6.6 rebounds per game when he is on the court. I am, however, worried about his injuries continuing. I'm hoping for the exact opposite, but if he's going to be on a list like this, he's got to have a lengthy career. Moving on to 2020, the next season, Anthony Edwards taken at pick number 1 by the Timberwolves. He has been looking great. He has been on a steep ascent ever since his rookie season and is currently averaging over 25 points per game in 2024, along with making 2 straight All-Star games now. Same thing I said about Cat goes for Ant here in regards to if they can come down with a championship on this team within the next couple of years, that would boost their names above plenty of other players in the league and in the past as well. They have been an exciting team so far in 2024, and I'm looking forward to seeing more out of these two. In 2022, we had Paolo Banchero taken first overall by the Orlando Magic. So far into his young career, he has won the Rookie of the Year award and made his first All-Star game in this current season. They're currently the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference at the time I'm making this video, I'm not necessarily sure if they have enough to make a deep playoff run this season, but they are trending in the right direction, however. Also, Paolo is averaging 23 points per game this season, along with just under 7 rebounds. If he can keep up that level of play, he should be in for a nice career. And finally, you guys know I had to throw Wemby on here, drafted in 2023, first overall by the San Antonio Spurs. This is his rookie season right now. He's currently averaging a double-double up to the midway point of the season and leading the league in blocks currently when I'm making this video at 3.2 per game. Standing in at 7 feet 4 inches tall, 209 pounds, we have never quite seen a player like Wemby in terms of how he can dribble and his outside game, along with so many other factors. If he keeps up this level of play for the rest of the season, he has Rookie of the Year in the bag, but it will be quite a while before he makes a list like this. The other day, he just dropped a triple-double. He became the youngest player ever to do so, including blocks, so promising future for this young man. Now, let me take a wild guess and say, if you guys made it this far into the video, you are big basketball fans. You like your basketball content. Well, if that's the case, maybe you'll like one of these 2 videos or browse around the channel. You know, I got a lot of videos. Also, hit that sub button, and I will catch you in the next one.